France also wants to be Europe's first state to enforce COVID passports, a move heavily criticised by rights campaigners as discriminating against the unvaccinated. Yet ministers insist it's about, quote, freedom.
This summer, I hope we will reclaim our freedom thanks to the vaccination, our restraint and this digital certification.
The certificate would show people's inoculation or immunity status and will be trialled on internal flights this week. Officials hope to expand it across Europe within a fortnight. Shops and restaurants will be exempt after complaints from their powerful lobbies. Let's go live now to Nikola Merkovich, political analyst. Thank you for joining us on the programme. It's great to see you. What are your thoughts on this scheme? Won't it make travel easier?
Well, if it were to make travel easier, I think everybody would just say congratulations. Finally, the French government has a good idea on how to handle this pandemic. The problem is we don't see how it can make it traveling easier. People have to get this app, put the documents they've got on that app, and then show it at the airports. And we know people will forget to put the information on it. People will forget to have the documents, and a lot of people are seeing this as some sort of global push on French citizens to get the vaccines and to say, if you want normal society, once again, everybody's got to get vaccinated. So I'm not so sure that the people who've been managing this situation since the past year have got this good idea all of a sudden right now. And it's going to work because for the rest of the management of this pandemic, they haven't shown a lot of success.
So just lay out for us the key criticisms of these certificates.
Well, people are saying, a lot of people in France normally today, they don't want the vaccine because they don't feel the vaccines are 100% safe. And so part of the population says, well, I'm ready to get vaccinated, but I want to wait because we've seen these thrombosis or different very hazardous side effects or people even dying. Other people saying, I don't want to get vaccinated at all. And all of a sudden the government is coming out with a pass saying that if you want to travel, which is a fundamental liberty, you have to have this pass, and we're more than encouraging you at least to get vaccinated or at least to have a document saying that you've got a negative PCR test. And people saying, well, this is an outright attack against freedom of travel and against our liberties. So, I mean, that is the main question today in France. And Emmanuel Macron promised that vaccination would not be obligatory in France. And people see this as a first step towards some sort of obligation to getting a vaccine. Because if you need a vaccine to travel today in France, or maybe tomorrow abroad, maybe you'll need the same app if you want to go to a restaurant. Even if the restaurant lobby says no today, will it be able to say no tomorrow? Or maybe you'll need this app to go to cinemas, maybe one day to vote. So people are quite afraid, and as they don't trust the government on a lot of issues, and notably on this management of the whole pandemic. I mean, we're more than a year after this pandemic in France, and the situation is still we're still in a stalemate situation. People don't trust the government, the French government, in managing this, and they're very suspicious about this app.
So having said that, how realistic do you think it is that officials are planning EU-wide expansion by June?
Listen, we're supposed to have an EU management of this whole COVID crisis for the past year, and we're still waiting for an EU solution. And we see that different member states of the EU don't have the same approach, don't have the same strategy in tackling the COVID. So, and this has been going on for over a year. So if it takes more than a year to attack the pandemic, I'm sure that for this digital application, it's going to take more than a fortnight. And we see that. And how is it going to work anyways? France, for example, accepts some vaccines. They won't accept, for example, Sputnik V from Russia, but Italy accepts it, Hungary accepts it, Slovakia accepts it. So how are we going to have a European Union app with some countries accepting some vaccines, other countries not accepting them? How's that going to work? Are we supposed to get a vaccine for each specific country? It seems a bit ridiculous, and I think that member states will have a hard time agreeing at least in the next 15 days.
So how much public opposition do you think we can expect?
A lot. I mean, it's same for the vaccine campaign. People are jittery when they're talking about putting their personal information on an app which is managed by the government. Again, if people were confident that people were managing, that the people at the head of France today were concerned by the health of the citizens, and that was paramount to them, and that was their primary concern, then I think they would be okay. But people see that there's a huge interest, personal interest, big pharmacy group interest. There's a lot of these interests which a lot of people think are more important than the interests of the citizens and the safety of the citizens. So as long as people will be skeptical about the real intentions of the government and what this app is the first layer to, then I think it's going to have a hard time going through. After a moment, if it's an obligation to have this app to travel is going to be complicated because some people will really feel forced to take the app because they need it to see family, relatives, or even to work. So it's going to create a lot of frustration, and we risk having some sort of two-way society with a fast track for those who've got the vaccine or who go do PCR tests regularly, and those who don't have it and who have less liberties than the first one. So I think this is going to create a lot of confusion and tension within the French society.
Political analyst Nicola Merkovich, thank you very much for your time.